What's up, my friends? Welcome to this episode of the Whole Health with Rob Carney podcast. This is a platform to connect with and share the stories of health professionals, personal development leaders, and health entrepreneurs who are making an impact in the world. And today I'm joined by my friend Hannah McKitrick. So Hannah was born a foodie and attended culinary school in Southern Italy, post-economic degree. However, around the same time, she had to learn how to manage and actually heal her own digestive illness while still maintaining her foodie integrity. That led her to creating easy gourmet meals centered around gut healing foods that are good for you and also taste amazing. Hannah is on a mission to help others better align themselves on a physical and spiritual level by having fun in the kitchen. Hannah brings high vibe energy to holistic cooking as a means to get creative, have fun in the kitchen, reconnect with the joy of healing. She replaces the dread of what's for dinner with an inspiration and desire to cook easy, flavorful, and healthy meals. So Hannah, welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, it's great to chat with you. And it's funny, just a little backstory for everybody. We actually went to the same high school. Hannah was the grade above me. And we had a couple classes together. I think we had French class together and a couple other ones.
Yeah.
But it's funny how 10 years later, however long it's been at this point, things come full circle. So
yeah, we ran into each other at a Reiki yoga class. So
it's funny how all that works. It's funny. So I'd love to just kind of start by, for you, obviously you got a pretty cool story and I know a little bit of it, but I'd love to just kind of have you start with what made you make this jump to culinary school?
Sure. So as my bio reads, I was born a foodie. I've always loved food. In my house, it was always, it had a lot of positive feelings around it. I would always help my dad in the kitchen. I had the pancake recipe memorized by the time I was 5. That was always there. And yet I love to, achieve and do the things. So I was always on a mainstream path, like, high school, good grades, college, degree, sales job after college, because that's what success meant to me. And my first job out of college was actually sales in the food industry. So I was like, oh my God, this is my dream job. I'm surrounded by food all day. I'm talking about food, going out and talking to people about food. And so that was like, this is great. And then after about a year and a half of doing that, I was like, okay, what's next? I'm bored. This isn't fulfilling. I've reached as far as I'm going to reach here, and what's next? So it had always been like a huge dream of mine to go to culinary school in Europe. Like it's one of those things like you think of and like you just kind of like, ooh, like get flutters everywhere. And I was actually the baker in college at my coffee shop. So like I said, I love food. So I was looking up actually culinary schools in France and Italy. I was looking at those too. And I came across this like random ass website. It was like kind of sketchy, didn't look legit at all, at the Italian Culinary Institute in Southern Italy. And I just saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, like this sounds good. Like I just got like a gut feeling. And, I swiped my credit card, and then in January 2017, I quit my job and I packed my bag to go live in Calabria for a couple months in this like intimate culinary program. And at the time, I kind of like, I never wanted to be a chef, like behind a kitchen, like chopping onions, like behind the line. Like, I'd go to bed at 8:00 usually. So I knew that life wasn't really for me. But I just wanted to be surrounded by this joy of mine. And I thought, even if it doesn't better my career in any way, shape, or form, this is exactly what I want to do right now. And it probably will benefit my career is what I was thinking. And so I went, and it was a blast.
Very cool. So what would you say, kind of obviously going there, I would imagine that there's some big differences between Italy eating, because I went on the high school trip to Italy for, 14 days or whatever the high school trip was.
Yeah.
And there's definitely some differences, but you were at a different age than I was at 17 years old going there at a high school trip with very different intentions. So I'm sure you saw a very different side of the Italian cuisine. So what would you say are some of the biggest differences between the food, the culture, and everything surrounding food in Italy?
Yeah, well, I could take this question on so many different routes because Italy itself is comprised of many regions, and each region has its own like Bible for food, honestly. And so I learned all about that, but I'd say the general consensus is that it's all about the heart, so it's like I feel like France is more about the technique and precision versus Italy. It's like from the heart. So like the grandmas, the nonas will be, with making pasta with their hands like all day on a Sunday. And then everyone will be contributing again, like with your hands. And I feel like the process is really special. And there's a lot of emphasis on the process. And the end result is sitting around with your loved ones and enjoying this thing that you created with your hands. And, there's a lot of emphasis, like it's obviously there's a lot of pasta, like I'm not going to lie, but there is also a lot of health to it. I mean, it might be a stretch, but they really use what's in season. They really emphasize like fresh vegetables, especially I was in Southern Italy. So we had a lot of fresh vegetables and we definitely utilized them in all of our meals. And, really cooking what's in season is, as super beneficial to your body, just from like a instinctual standpoint. You're better able to digest and process that when it's in season.
Sure. And even just you mentioned there's a lot of pasta going on in Italy, a lot of gluten. But from a lot of the research I've done is that a lot of people have these sensitivities to gluten. Oftentimes are actually sensitive to the glyphosate and the non-organic forms of gluten. So, in Italy, they tend to have much cleaner grains over there than we do in the US. The quality I find to be a lot better. And people that have, gluten intolerance here can often eat a lot of the stuff in Italy. So I think that coming from America, a lot of times we hear like, oh, Italians eat a lot of, pasta and a lot of gluten, but the quality matters. And I think that also like the love and intention made behind it matters. And that's, not as much of a tangible piece per se, but I think there's something to that as well. Is that throwing a little
food energetics? Yeah, it's totally a thing. Food tastes better with a smile when you're making it.
It does, it really does. And it's just like anything, anytime we're having fun doing something, I think that that's really where things come to the next level. Like we can be doing the same thing, but if one of us is having fun, the other one isn't, we're having two completely different experiences, even though we're doing the same thing. And that's one thing I like that you mentioned is that you try to make your classes, you make your classes fun. And that's a big, aspect of what we do at our group Ice and Iron here in Boston is we want to incorporate play and fun because sometimes as adults, we think everything has to be boring. So,
totally. Yeah. Like I feel like play and fun are like, honestly, my brand's identity because it's like health, like it's so bastardized and it's like, it's not supposed, I don't think it's supposed to be strict. It's things you do to make yourself feel lighter and better. It's not supposed to be like rigid and like, it's like cooking. Like, that's why I'm glad I didn't go to France is because I don't always like to be precise. I like to kind of fling things around and like whatever, like eyeball things and how fun will I do it, and to be like constricted in any sort of way, I think sucks the fun out of just a bit.
Yeah. And I think like we said with the idea of health shouldn't be, I mean, it's going to be challenging because everything we do is challenging. Anytime we're trying to grow, there's going to be a challenge, but it shouldn't be unpleasant. Like it should be fun. And that's, I think, a big thing is the healthier we get, we actually feel like we have more energy and we actually feel more free and less restricted because we realize, hey, health isn't just, going to the gym and doing cardio 4 days a week and then eating broccoli, chicken breast, and white rice. It's like, hey, actually, we have a little bit more flexibility in there. And we start to engage with these ideas of flexibility. We start to implement different areas of health. We realize, wow, there's so many different ways that I can incorporate things to better my health. And I think that I always tell people one of the easiest ways to start to get healthier is start cooking your own food. And it doesn't have to be this very precise method. Like you said, for me, a lot of times it's just chopping things up and throwing them in a pan. Like the stir fry is one of the easiest ways to get healthier. So, for you, when you're teaching people things in these cooking classes, what does that look like and where do you start? Because I think a lot of people are intimidated by the idea when they have this story, they tell themselves, I can't cook.
Mm. Well, start with a cocktail. No, I'm just kidding. He's kind of. So I'm wondering how deep to dive in this question. So
as deep as you want to.
Okay, so basically my philosophy around nutrition, I'll start there. I've studied Western medicine, Eastern medicine. You touched upon it. I healed my own gut through diet, and there's a lot of conflicting and a lot of confusing information out there. And I'm very quick and to the point and like don't have time for bullshit. And so the way that my mind kind of intuitively trimmed the fat on all that information was into two main things. Number one was vegetables. Like those that I've seen have not been contradicted yet as being healthy or not. They're healthy. Number two is whole foods. So one word ingredients like, quinoa, chicken, eggs, chickpeas, stuff like that. And so that's kind of where my mental mind starts when I'm like, let's make a healing, healthy meal. Okay. And then the next like tier that I think of is flexibility. So I'm not like, that's not all that I eat. Like I eat Cheez-Its, I eat cookies, but that's like the overarching base. And then from there, I like to add flexibility to either make my dish taste really, really good with like some cheese, and usually it's cheese, or, to eat my meal and then have my dessert afterwards or what have you. So there will always be vegetables in my cooking class, and heavy emphasis on whole food. So that's where I start. And then from there, I call a lot of my meals healthy gourmet, meaning I like them to taste like they came out of a restaurant in Italy, but they're loaded with nutrients. So I do that, again, like with cheese, but also with a lot of fresh sauces, which I think it's pretty underrated. But like in a blender, mixing up like some basil, some pistachios, garlic, and oil, and like giving that a whirl, salt and pepper, that can make any cauliflower rice, zucchini noodles, grain bowl, anything tastes really good. Just a drizzle on that. So in my classes, I kind of hold people's hands as we step by step take this meal. It's not complicated, it's simple, and make it taste really good. And like comments that I'll hear afterwards is, oh my gosh, I can't believe how filling this is without meat. Or, oh my gosh, my husband hates seafood, but he loves this salmon, like the way that we prepared it. And like, I can't believe how like easy and simple this is. I don't know why I never did this, because it's not like the actual process that's hard. Like anyone can do it. It's just the idea of it or the intimidation of it. If you've never done it, like, of course that's hard. And so I like to bring the flavor, and two, bring the energy. So I make it so that it's like, if you want to buy the pre-cut butternut squash, like all the power to you. Like that's amazing. If you're going to eat more squash, like why not? So again, like less rules and more like what's going to make this feel good for you, what's going to make it enjoyable for you so that it can then become intuitive for you, so that you don't have to think about it so much. Because like, who wants to be thinking all day about like how to be healthy? Like you just want to do it and feel good. So that's kind of what I do in the classes.
I love it. Yeah. And just like you said, with the intuitive side, I think that at the end of the day, we all know the basis of health, to some degree. We want to eat healthier. We need to move more. We need to sleep better. But like you said, if we've never done these things before, it can be intimidating. And like I was saying before, is like we often tell ourselves story of, I'm not a chef, I don't cook, I'm not good at cooking. Like these stories that we've reinforced, and then we believe them. But then I think when you take a class, I would imagine like yours, people walk away and thinking, wow, this is actually not as difficult as I thought it would be.
Yeah. And it's not even like, sometimes it's less even about intimidation and more just about like the lack of motivation. It's like, and like I would compare it to myself, like for yoga, like I love yoga. I feel so good when I do it. I love doing it. But I like to go to a class because I don't like to do it alone because I'm usually, my phone's near me. I get distracted. I don't have the full like motivation to like do the thing. But like when I go to a class, my mind like gets blown away and it feels so good. So like even like the accountability of having someone hold that space for you in a cooking class so that you can live out your best healthy life and have fun doing it, I think is really fun for people. Like they actually, they look forward to it. So.
Yeah. And I think that it also comes down to the community connection. That's a big piece of, what I talk about all the time on my page is the importance of community. And I think that especially the past couple of years, we've really been shown that as isolation is at an all-time high. And if we can have connection with people, whether that's online or in person, doesn't really matter. I personally think that it's nice to have the in-person connection, but I also love to have the online connection because I can be connected with people from Florida and California and Germany and people all over the world through this little device that we're talking to. And that's pretty cool. And then it's nice to have the in-person as well. But I think that having people working with you, and like you said, having somebody just kind of, lead you, give you some guidance, show you the next step, because sometimes that's all we need. We don't really need somebody to drag us along. We just need somebody to say, here's the first step, and here's the second step, and kind of, like you said, slowly show them the way and recognize like, hey, with a little bit of help, you can really do anything, especially with the internet. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. And from the comfort of your own kitchen, which is nice.
Right.
Like you're using your own tools. Cause like I used to teach cooking classes at Italy in Boston. And, we'd be making pasta and then people would go home and never do it again because they didn't have the tools that they had in the cooking class or like they weren't in their environment. But like prepping yourself in your own environment is like, just like adds more odds in your favor of like continuing the habit because it's habitual and you're familiar with it.
For sure. So when you are kind of talking to people about the whole world of cooking and you're getting people involved with these classes, kind of like walking me through, like, what does it look like? Are people buying the ingredients before the class and then you're walking them through the tutorial? Is it an hour? Is it a 90-minute, 2-hour? Like what's the,
yeah, no, that's a really good question. I always assume people can read my minds, but they can't. So I'll tell you about the classes. So basically how it works is I send them the recipe and grocery shopping list a week before the class so that they can get it. And a lot of the stuff, it's like pantry staples, so they will already have it. Usually what they're buying is just the fresh produce. And then I send like 9,000 reminders, like set out your ingredients, preheat your oven, like whatever they need. And then we start the class and I like to keep them no more than an hour because we got to eat. So usually they're an hour. Unless we're jabbing away, which we usually are. So sometimes it goes a little over. And then I like to have it so that like start to finish, we make the meal together. So like, there's no like prep work ahead of time. You don't have to like do any of that, like just start to finish. And if you think about it, like we're talking a lot. I'm waiting for people to kind of come along with us. And so the meal itself, if you were to make it on your own, is probably like 25 minutes start to finish. But during the class, it's a little bit longer. And so it's actually cool because on Zoom, like I have everyone turn on their camera so I can kind of see what they're doing. And it's nice because obviously a recipe will say like, cook your squash for 35 minutes. But like, as all the recipes say, like star, every oven is different. And so the cool thing is like during a class, I can be like, okay, mine are done. And this is why. Like, I don't set timers. I put it in and I smell it and it's done. And I show them like, cause it's crispy on the bottom and like tender here, but like, if you don't like it crispy, then take it out now or like stuff like that. And then people can show me their trays, like fact check, like, is this done? Or like, as we're making sauces, like I always am like, taste it. And depending on like how their face scrunches, I can usually like decipher what needs to be added, whether it be like some acid or some maple syrup, salt, pepper, whatever. So that's fun. And then by the end, we have a nice meal and everyone's family is like anxiously drooling behind the scenes. And then we usually turn off the camera and everyone eats with their family.
Love it. Very cool. Yeah. And that's kind of my approach too, as it comes to cooking is I definitely not a big timer guy, not a big recipe follower. It's like I said, it's kind of intuitive to some degree. And I like to throw things together and experiment and say, hey, what if I add a little bit more of this time? And so no meal is ever exactly the same. And I also kind of like that I think once you get into that predictable mode where it's the same every time, for me, it doesn't make it as fun. I know some people love that. It's the same exact recipe every time, but I kind of like the intuitive, the play around with it side.
Yeah. And it's like, it's a muscle that you have to build, right? I mean, you don't just like come out knowing exactly what to do. And I've been doing this for years. And so it's really fun for me because it's really intuitive. So like I can, like, if I don't have squash in my fridge, but I have a sweet potato, I know that like, that's a good substitute. And so I always like encourage people to use what they have. And like, you know, some people come on classes and be like, oh my God, I totally forgot the zucchini that we're going to top our pizza with. And I'm like, well, do you have like canned artichokes in your pantry? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, great. So like that kind of thing, to just kind of start to learn how you can make things with what you have, but make them still taste good.
I love that. Well, as we're talking about intuitive, the name of your company is My Intuitive Health. So I'd love to just kind of dive into how that came to be.
Sure. So we've definitely touched upon it a bit during this call, but like the premise of it is that things that you do for your health should be because they light you up. Like you shouldn't be following a Bible of like, check like what I have to do every day. Like like for me, I wake up, and some people might like scoff their nose at me, but I wake up and I go for a run every day. And that's not because I'm like, oh my God, I have to run. It's like, I love to start my day with like fresh air and like endorphins and moving my body. And like, that's not because I have to, it's because like I actually want to. And that's to say like running isn't for everyone. And like, that's not going to be everyone's intuitive health, but there is something out there that can feel mindless for you, like brushing your teeth. Like you just do it because like you want to feel fresh and clean. And so with my classes and with cooking, I feel the same way. And again, it's like, once you start to learn little things that make it fit into your specific lifestyle more, like I said, buying the pre-cut squash or buying the pre-spiralized zucchini noodles or like the pre-packaged pesto, like all of those are like totally like they're really good substitutes, but maybe you didn't like give yourself permission to do those before. So then you just couldn't even approach it and it just felt too intimidating. But the more that you start to kind of figure out what works for you and what makes you happy, then it's like not trigger, but it's like a positive feedback loop. And then, you know, you eat this meal and you're like, oh my God, I feel really good. I kind of want to do this again. And then you're cooking and your daughter wants to help. And then you guys are having this moment. And it's like, oh, let's do that again. Like, you know, and so that's the whole idea of making it intuitive, is making it more mindless and enjoyable.
Love it. So you've mentioned some running, you mentioned some yoga, and obviously cooking, but what are some other health practices you do that maybe you don't talk about as much? I'm sure there's something that isn't as mainstream that you do. You know, for me, I love just running around, shaking my body, getting a little funky. So what are some of those little fun things that maybe you don't talk about as much you do for your health?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, I've been doing virtual Reiki as like a self-care practice for myself with a good friend of mine, which has been really impactful. I totally believe in like energy and stuck patterns, and, you know, food is energy. And so, you know, it's all intertwined. And then the other thing that I've really gotten into this year is like angel cards, like pulling like the tarot card type of things. I feel like it helps me really like tune into my intuition. And it's funny because, and so the way these work, it's like you ask a question or think of some situation in your life, and then you pull a card, and it's like a deck of a lot. And the way that I know that it works for me is that like I'll pull a card sometimes and I'm like, I don't know if that's right, and I'll like shuffle it, like clear it, whatever, and then pull another one, it's the same one. And like that happens like again and again. And so I've actually been kind of like incorporating that a little bit more into my works, like one for like certain ideas, to see like how they're energetically aligned, but then two, also for clients. So sometimes like if something's going on in someone's life, like everything is so interconnected. So like even in the kitchen, if someone's like really uptight, it's like, ooh, like what else are you like not letting yourself like trust or something in your life? So I'll pull a card to kind of like help them through that, because I feel like the kitchen can be like the way you show up in one place is the way you show up in many other places. And so like, even for myself, the kitchen is super, super playful for me. Like I like automatically smile. But like not everything in my life is playful, like automatically. So to me, I use that as like a lesson to like, okay, how can I bring this relaxed energy into other parts of my life? And that's what I kind of like try to emphasize with my clients as well.
Yeah, no, it's funny because the tarot cards is something I've gotten into the past probably year and a half as well. And at first
fun.
I was definitely a little skeptical at first. I was like, oh, this is some weird hippie shit. But then after I started doing it, I was like,
oh, wait a second, I am a weird hippie. So
yeah, it all worked out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, it's funny because a lot of these practices, even, sometimes when we're doing tarot cards, like sometimes we'll do a nighttime ices or nighttime ice and iron events, which are more of the yin side, and we'll do tarot cards there at times. And like sometimes people are like, what's going on here? And then they pull one, and then it's like, I remember we had 8 of us there, maybe a couple more, but call it 8. And everybody pulled a card, and like everybody's felt so spot on. And then the last person pulled one was completion. And there's like this, like you said, it's you can doubt it all you want, but then you have all those experiences, and it's like, okay, there's definitely something going on here, and they're powerful, and they give you that little message you need.
Yeah, and like for me, I have so many synchronicities in my life, and I've like the older I get, the more I start to like trust when I get like an intuitive hit that like, oh, that means that that's good, like that's for me, I should follow it. And with big events, like I've quit my job 3 times to move to Europe. And every time it's really fun. And every time I have minimal information or plan. And it always works out because I'm just like in the surrender phase, and like just like ready to receive whatever is coming. And I think that practice is, the more you can do that practice, the more flow you'll feel and the lighter that you'll feel, instead of like trying to force like a square into a circle hole or something, because like that's just frustrating.
For sure. Well, it definitely sounds like anybody who is in the world of holistic health that wants to learn how to cook and wants to make this a little bit more fun and intuitive, I think that you've got a pretty good resource for them, especially the fact that it can be done online, and like you said, from the comfort of people's homes. And that's something I really enjoy about some of the one-on-one coaching I do, is that, hey, it's not like I have a client in Australia, like that wouldn't be possible if we couldn't do this online. And so I think that it's a great opportunity for people to learn a different side of health that isn't as popularized. I think that people tend to think of, again, the exercise side of things when it comes to health, but learning how to cook, like I was saying in the beginning, is one of the easiest ways to improve your overall health. Yeah. So, I'd love to just kind of have you share, where can people sign up for these? Where can people get tapped into what you're doing, follow along, and all those cool things?
Sure. So, I have 2 programs, and they are both beginning the second week of January. The first one, it's called Cook Well. And so that's my like signature program. It's 8 weeks, and it's with a small group of people, and it's the same group throughout the 8 weeks. And we meet once a week over Zoom at 6 Eastern Standard. It's on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. It fluctuates. And we cook yummy shit from start to finish, and it's healthy. And that's honestly what we do. And then they also get recipes in between just to like fill in the gaps throughout their weeks. And it's so fun. I mean, by the end, it feels like family. I met some of them were random people, and I've already, we get lunches now, we get dinners, we're friends now. So it's a fun community. So that's one. It's kind of like the starter package into intuitive cooking, what have you. Or if you just kind of want something to look forward to during your week. And then the other one is called Cook Well Mastermind. So it's obviously a spinoff of that. We meet the same. It's every other week plus a monthly bonus call. And it's a 4.5-month program. So it's more in depth to give you more opportunity to really integrate that skill. It's one thing to learn it and do it once, but it's another thing to actually integrate it to make it more automatic. And again, it's a small group throughout the 4.5 months. And April 29th, I'm bringing the Cookwell Mastermind group on a culinary and wellness retreat to Southern Italy. So that's where I went to culinary school, as we talked about. And I'm collaborating with the president of the school, Chef John, and we're creating some all-inclusive magic culinary, wine, all the things, pasta making. I'm bringing one of my good shaman friends with us, and she's going to do like some sound healing and intuitive channeling readings. And, you have like a 360 view of the Ionian Sea. So it's going to be really fun. And if any of this is like sparking any interest, I highly recommend anyone listening to reach out and just chat to see, what questions you have. If it's not a right fit now, maybe it will be next year or whatever. I'm always open to chatting though. And I'm sure you'll put my contact places, but my website is myintuitivehealth.com. And both of those programs are on that. And you can sign up for the 8-week one on my website. And for the mastermind one, I would just want to chat first to make sure that it's the right fit all around.
Love it. Well, like you said, I will put all those links in the description here. So if you didn't catch those and you're listening right now, check out the show notes, check out the description, and they will all be in there. So Hannah, thank you for popping on here today and sharing what you've been up to. It's cool to reconnect with you on this platform. And then hopefully I'll see you at another yoga class pretty soon.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And everybody listening, as I said, check out the links in the description here. Check out the show notes. Thank you for listening. Have an epic day, and we'll see you soon.
Ciao.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Whole Health with Rob Carney podcast with my wonderful guest, Hannah McKitrick. Like I mentioned, check out all the links in the description box for all things Hannah, as well as to find out some of the favorite superfoods that I work with. And if you've listened to this podcast, you've enjoyed this episode in any way, shape, or form, I'd really love for you to share this with somebody you think that could benefit. And that's really how we can spread the word of all things health and wellness, is by sharing the message. So if you enjoyed it, please share it. Please like, please subscribe, and now Spotify has opened up ratings for all podcasts. So if you have not given this podcast a rating on Spotify or Apple or whatever platform you do listen on, I would really appreciate that 5-star rating if you enjoy these episodes. And like I've mentioned in prior episodes, 2022 is going to be a big year for me on YouTube, spending a lot of time and energy dedicated to YouTube. So I'll be putting out weekly videos on there as well as the podcast. So if you do watch the podcast on YouTube, that will continue to be there, dropping every Monday, and other YouTube videos will drop every single Thursday. So I appreciate the support. I hope that my episodes have been supportive to you. I'm very much looking forward to growing with you together in this new year of 2022 that is just around the corner if you're listening to this at the launch. And let's make this the best year ever. That's the goal. Make every year a little better than the last one. So in that sense, it's going to be the best year ever. Use me as best you can, any way I can support, whether that's with the group coaching, one-on-one coaching, with the superfoods, or simply listening to this podcast and sharing this with other people. However I can support you, let me know. I'm here to help, and let's make it the best year ever. I'll see you soon.